Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we're going to be working on our Eleanor Burns sampler quilt. And so we're on block 5. So today we're making the Colorado block. Now the way, one of the methods in here, I think we did it in another block. It's really strange way of making flying geese, but it works. And I think we did it in the other, one of the other blocks. I'm not sure. I don't remember which one it was, but we'll do it the way they say to do it, and we'll see how it comes out. So for this one, you need light, medium, and a dark. And you're going to cut a 7.5 inch dark square, a 9 inch light square, 4 3.5 by 6.5 rectangles of your medium fabric, and then 8 3.5 inch of your light, 3.5 inch squares of your light. So with the first two squares, the 7.5 and the 9 inch, I'm going to bend you down here so that you can see. Oh, sorry. I'll get it set here in a second. Okay. So, you know, obviously the 9 inch is going to be much bigger than our 7.5, but we're going to center the 7.5 inch on the 9. And before you do that, you're going to want to draw a line corner to corner on your darker fabric on the back side of it. So just get that centered on there. That looks pretty good. And then we're going to sew down both sides, kind of like making a half square triangle. Well, it is actually making a half square triangle, but we're going to sew down both sides, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. Use 1/4 inch seam allowance. Flip this around, and we're going to go right down the other side. Ow! That got my finger. I hope I didn't break that needle. I was just trying to move the thread out of the way. Alright, so then we're going to come over here. I'm going to turn you around where you can see what we're doing. And we are going to cut this right on our drawn line, all the way, both pieces of fabric. So I'm going to line that up. Okay, so you're going to have two what looks like big half square triangles. So we're going to press these. And in the pattern, it says press it to the larger triangle, which would be our background triangle. So we'll just press that open. We'll do this one. Okay. Now, we're going to flip these right sides together, and we're going to have our background on one side and our color on the other side, and we're going to put them opposite. Now, we are not nesting the seams. Do not nest those seams. What we're going to do is line up the outside edges. And if your seam allowance is a little bit off, they may not quite match up, but just get them as close as you can. Like I said, you're going to have about a 1 inch gap here where your seams are, but you do not want to try to match them. And I'm going to actually put a couple of pins in this just to kind of hold it, because mine is really close there. I gotta get some new pins. These things aren't very sharp. Alright, and then what we're going to do, I'm going to bring my mat up here. We're going to draw another line corner to corner. Now the first seam is going this way. We're going to draw our line this way. And we're going to sew on both sides of that line, just like we did the first time. Like I said, it's very important. Do not try to match your seams, your center seams up here, because your block will come out all wrong. Trust me. Don't ask me how I know. I did that mistake at first, and then I was like, why is this not lining up? I don't, you know, where are the flying geese out of this? I'm not seeing it. But anyway, okay, here we go. So 1/4 inch, both sides. right, and down this other side. Okay, I'm going to pull the pins out of here. Then we're going to cut this one in half, just like we did the other. So we'll lay that there. Get our ruler. And, all right, and then we are going to press these open before we trim them down to what we need. So as you can see, you're going to end up with something like this, but this is what you want. So we'll just roll this back. All right, that's our first one. And this is our second one. And I actually think this method is probably easier. I've seen the forward, no waste for flying geese and all the, you know, I was never very good at those. I usually just do it the old-fashioned way with the squares and sewing them on corner to corner, but this method, once you kind of get used to doing it, it's actually not too bad. Okay, so we're going to trim 4 flying geese out of this. So a smaller ruler is helpful. This is a 6.5 inch ruler, and our flying geese need to be 6.5 by 3.5. But we need to make sure we leave at least 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch above the peak here, the point on our flying geese, so that we have plenty of seam allowance when we go to putting the block together. So if I come down here and just go 1/2 an inch across the bottom here, and then I center this up, the center of my thing here should be at 3 and it'd be 3 3/4, right? 6.5, it would be 3 1/4. I'm sorry, I was thinking too much. Okay, 3 1/4, my center line. So I'll have 6.5 because my ruler's 6.5. I'll trim off both sides of this, but I'll have exactly 6.5 across here. And like I said, I'm going to go up just a little bit above 3.5. I want to make sure I have at least 1/4 of an inch above on that one. So we'll just trim this way, and thank goodness my mat is a turning mat, because I can just come right around here and go this way. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double check my measurement. I know I'm 6.5 wide, but I want to make sure I'm 3.5 tall. And I'm going to measure it from the top, because I would rather have more up here than I would at the very bottom. So at 3.5, right there, and I'll trim just a little bit off of this bottom. So hopefully that makes sense. It seems confusing, but like I said, once you do it a time or two, it's really not that bad. But it does help to have a ruler that's pretty size specific to what you're needing. So there's 3.5 and 3 1/4. I'll just trim a little bit off of the bottom. I'm going to turn this around. Oops, everything went. I'm going to line this back up. All right. So then I'm going to go 3.5 here from the top and just trim off this little bit on the bottom here. Okay, I'm going to get these other 2 trimmed up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so once you have all 4 of your flying geese units, you can set them aside. So now we're going to work with our medium, the 3.5 by 6.5 triangles and our 3.5 inch squares. I've drawn a line on the back of all 8 of my squares. And the first square that we put on, we're going to orient it so that the line, the corner, goes from the center and down to the bottom right. So I'm just going to get all these ready so I know which direction and I don't get them turned around. And we're going to sew directly on that drawn line. And I'm just going to chain piece these through here because I think it'll be just about as easy to do that. Just make sure everything's lined up. And off you go. Okay, so once you have them sewn on there, we're going to flip them back and press it and then trim the back of it off. I always like to press it first to make sure that it's all lined up, because that you can fix it now before you trim it if you get it a little too short, or it won't, you know, the square, the entire rectangle won't still measure the same as when you started, because you definitely want it to measure the same when you started. So then you should have 4 of those. So then we're going to turn those with the square down to the left, and we are going to add another square to this other end, and we're going to sew it the same direction. So it's going to go from the middle down to the bottom right. Okay, and so I'm just going to go ahead and lay all mine out, and that way I know they're on there, they're going the right direction. So what's going to happen is when we fold this back, it's going to give us this diamond shape here. So it's important to make sure your orientation of your squares is the correct direction. All right, and I'll bring you back to the sewing machine. And then again, I'm just going to chain piece these through, making sure everything's lined up and straight like it's supposed to be. There we go. And so right on that line, or just a hair to the right of it, so that you can fold your fabric back and not have it be too short. All right. And once you have all of them sewn on, then you're just going to roll this back, press it, and then trim the back extra fabric off, leaving a 1/4 of an inch, about a 1/4 of an inch, just eyeball it, seam allowance. All right, so then you should have 4 units that look like this. So now we get to lay our block out. Okay, so now we're going to make our 1/4 units, is what they're calling it. So you're going to take one of your flying geese with the point pointed outwards, and one of these, I don't know, angle units, and you want the angle to go up, and then, you know, from the bottom up. So I'm just going to stack all 4 of them together, and then that way I can just lay them together and chain piece them. And so I'll bring these over here to the sewing machine, and we're just going to make these units, and then it's just a simple 4-patch block going together after that. Real easy. So just line those up. I take a few anchor stitches, pull this down here. All right, line this one up, and we're going to sew all 4 of them just like this. Easy peasy. Alright, so once you've got all them sewn together, then we're going to press it open, and I'm pressing mine towards my flying geese units. It seems like there's less bulk there, so you're going to end up with what looks like, I don't know, a check mark? That's what it reminds me of. That's what it looks like. Alright, and we'll get this one, and then all we got left is to lay our block out and get her sewn together. Okie dokie. So all these are the same direction, right? So the first one, it's going to get laid out with your flying geese going up. then, you know, so if all these were the same direction, we're basically just going to turn the blocks once each. So this one goes up. We're going to make it one turn. This one's going to go here. We're going to go 1 and 2 turns to go down here. And this one's going to go 1, 2, and 3 turns to end up here. Can you see it? Looks pretty cool. Okay, and then it's just a 4-patch at that point to sew together. Super easy. So let's bring you over here to the sewing machine and sew her together. And I'm just going to chain piece these through. I try to chain piece anytime that I can. Especially blocks like this, because it doesn't take very much. You know, if you twist one way or another, the next thing you know, your block is not put together right because you had something turned or twisted. And I've done it 100 times. Trust me, me and my seam ripper are very well acquainted. So if I do it this way, they're already attached and I know they are not going to be incorrect, and all I've got to do is just sew them together. So line those up. So I think the center seam's about the only thing that we're going to really have to line up. And just make them go the way you want them to go. I'm going to make sure that the rest of everything else is lined up. Man, this would make a really cool quilt just with all these blocks. I imagine if you put them side by side, you know, you get a really cool secondary pattern out of it. And that's it. She's done. Oh, and we even did good in the middle. Look at my center. Oh, I did good, and I wasn't even trying. Now, there's a lot of bulk right there. I think I'm going to press this seam open just to see, because that's really bulky right there. So let's go over here. And I don't normally press my seams open, but like this one, there's so much bulk right there. I think I'm gonna just to help eliminate some of that. So I love this little Aliso iron for this. I can just take the point of that thing and just get right in there. And just run my finger along that. And it's not wanting to open up. Oh, I know why it's not opening up, because I had a little piece of a thread there holding it all together. So let me trim that. There we go. Okay. I got her now. And I kind of have been here lately. I've been doing more open seams. I don't know. I seem to, it's a lot of work. You know, it takes a little bit of extra time, but I really like the end product that I'm getting. And I've also been pressing from the back side first and then coming in and pressing from the top, because back here I can kind of get my seams started, you know, going the direction that I want them to go. And then once I flip it over, I can just flatten it out and just come right in and make sure nothing's, you know, rolled together. Now this block should finish at 12 inches, 12 and a half unfinished, or 12-inch finished, depending on whatever way you like to, whatever way you prefer to say. If it's just a little bit under, you can take some starch, some steam, and steam it, and it'll shrink it. If you just need to stretch just a wee bit, like I've got a little bit of a, I'm guessing that's probably gonna be a little short, then I'll bring some starch in here and just, you know, press it out and get that little bit out. But anyway, the Colorado block, I really like this block. This is so neat. And like I said, my centers, I did good. They're not perfect, but they're really, really close. So that's, I like that. I don't care myself. I'm not one for perfect points. I mean, sometimes you lose points and sometimes you cut off your edges of your, you know, half square triangles or whatever. Nobody's really going to look at your quilt that close, and they darn sure are not going to give it back to you because you lost a point. So, you know. So anyway, there's the Colorado block. So that's block 5. And I will see you guys next time for block 6. Have a great day.